Hello, I am Mike.
Hello, I am Lily. Welcome to English Podcast Flow.
And in today's podcast, we're going to talk about something that is a really big problem for a lot of English learners.
Mm-hmm.
And that is this feeling of being afraid to actually speak English.
Right.
Even when you understand quite a lot of what you read and you hear,
Absolutely.
when it comes to actually opening your mouth and making sentences, that's when the real fear kicks in for so many people.
Yeah, that's true. And, it can be really frustrating when you feel like, okay, I know the grammar rules, like you've been studying, you understand the words, but when it's time to actually put it into practice, you just freeze up.
Right.
And I think a lot of our listeners can probably relate to that feeling.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
It's called Are You Afraid to Speak English? And it's about understanding why this fear exists and, more importantly, what you can do about it.
Exactly.
What are some practical steps you can take to overcome this really natural fear? So today, we want to create a safe space to explore these fears and offer you some really practical tips and a lot of encouragement to help you on your journey
Yes.
to becoming a more confident and fluent English speaker. Have you ever felt that way, like this gap between understanding and actually speaking?
Oh, absolutely. I think everyone who learns a language goes through that stage
Right.
where you understand, but then you're like, oh my gosh, how do I actually say this?
It's like you have all the pieces of the puzzle, but you can't put them together.
Yeah, you can't quite, yeah. You've got the ingredients, but you don't know the recipe.
Exactly. You spend hours studying grammar and vocabulary. You feel good about your understanding
Yeah.
when you're reading a book or listening to music.
Yeah.
But then you try to have a simple conversation, and it's like all that knowledge disappears.
It's gone. It's evaporated.
Right. There's this fear of making a mistake or sounding stupid that takes over.
Totally. And you know what? I think part of it is also just the pressure. We put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect, right? And it's like, if I'm going to speak English, it has to be perfect.
Right.
And that's just not realistic,
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? This fear of making mistakes prevents you from actually practicing and improving.
Absolutely. It's a vicious cycle.
Exactly. So let's dive into some of the reasons why people might feel this fear.
Okay.
So one of the biggest reasons
Mm-hmm.
is this fear of making mistakes.
Yeah.
When they speak, it appears that a lot of learners are worried about saying something grammatically incorrect.
Oh, yeah.
Using the wrong tense or maybe the wrong preposition.
Or forgetting an article.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They've spent so much time learning the rules that the idea of not using them perfectly is terrifying.
Yeah, they're so afraid of making a mistake that they just don't speak at all.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like they think every sentence has to be perfect.
100% accurate.
Right. And this pressure can be paralyzing.
Absolutely. And I think it comes from the way we're often taught languages.
Yeah.
In school, there's so much emphasis on getting everything right, on passing tests and getting good grades.
Right.
And mistakes are seen as a bad thing.
Yeah.
And that kind of thinking can really stick with you.
Yeah. It makes you afraid to take risks
Exactly.
when you're speaking.
Because you don't want to be judged.
Right. And then the lack of practice just makes it worse.
Absolutely.
Right?
Because you're not getting the experience you need to actually improve.
Right. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is.
So it's really important to challenge this idea that mistakes are bad
Absolutely.
and to start seeing them as opportunities to learn.
Exactly. Mistakes are how we learn.
Exactly.
I mean, think about it. When you were a baby learning to walk, you didn't just get up and start walking perfectly.
No.
You fell down a bunch of times.
Right.
But each time you fell, you learned something.
You got back up.
You got back up and you tried again.
Right.
And eventually you learn how to walk.
Right. And it's the same with language.
It's the same with language.
Yeah.
You're going to make mistakes.
You have to make mistakes.
You have to stumble.
Right.
You have to say things that sound a little bit funny.
Right.
But that's okay. That's part of the process.
And it appears that another big fear for a lot of learners is their accent.
Oh, yeah. Accents can be a huge source of anxiety.
Right.
Yeah.
People can be really self-conscious about how they sound.
Mm-hmm.
They compare themselves to native speakers.
Yeah.
And if their accent is different, they feel embarrassed.
They feel like, oh, my accent is wrong. Or
Right.
people won't understand me.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And this can be especially true if they've had negative experiences in the past.
Absolutely. Like if someone has made fun of their accent
Right.
or if they've had trouble being understood,
Right. And that can really damage their confidence.
it can make you not want to speak at all.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So it's important to remember that everyone has an accent.
Everyone,
Yeah.
even native speakers have accents.
Right.
It's just that we're so used to hearing certain accents that we don't think of them as accents.
Right. It's just part of who you are.
Exactly. And your accent doesn't make you any less intelligent.
Or any less capable
Absolutely not.
of communicating.
Mm-hmm.
So embrace your accent.
Yeah, be proud of it.
Right, it's part of your identity.
It is.
And it appears that another reason why people are afraid to speak is that they feel like they don't have enough vocabulary. They feel like they can't express themselves properly.
Right. They're like, I don't know enough words.
Right.
I can't find the right words.
It's going to sound stupid.
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a child.
Right. And that's understandable.
It is. It's frustrating.
But it's important to remember that you don't need to know every single word
No, not at all.
in the English language.
You don't need to have a native speaker's vocabulary
Right.
to be able to communicate effectively.
Right. You can get your message across
Mm-hmm.
with a limited vocabulary.
Absolutely.
And as you learn more words,
Mm-hmm.
you can start to use them.
Yeah, and you'll be surprised how quickly your vocabulary grows.
Exactly. So if you're listening to this and you're nodding your head
Mm-hmm.
and you're relating to these fears,
Yeah.
know that you are not alone.
You are not alone at all.
These are incredibly common fears
Mm-hmm.
that almost every English learner experiences.
It's a normal part of the process.
Right. So don't beat yourself up about it.
Be kind to yourself.
Right. Be patient with yourself.
It takes time.
Right. It takes time and it takes practice.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about the truth about making mistakes.
Okay.
Because it appears that a lot of learners have this idea that mistakes are bad.
Mm-hmm. They're like the enemy.
Right. Like they should be avoided at all costs.
Yeah, but actually the opposite is true.
Right. Mistakes are essential for learning.
Absolutely essential.
How else are you going to learn?
Exactly. I mean, how do you learn anything?
Right.
You try it, you make mistakes,
You experiment.
you experiment,
Yeah.
you see what works, you see what doesn't work,
You adjust.
you adjust, and you get better.
Right. And language is no different.
No different at all.
Every mistake you make
Mm-hmm.
is an opportunity to learn.
It's feedback.
It's feedback.
Yeah.
It's telling you.
It's telling you, okay, this is what you need to work on.
Right.
This is where you need to improve.
So instead of seeing mistakes as failures,
Yeah.
see them as valuable lessons.
See them as stepping stones.
Right. Think about it like this.
Right?
If you were learning to play the piano,
Mm-hmm.
would you expect to play perfectly the first time you sat down?
Of course not.
Of course not. You would make mistakes.
You would hit the wrong notes.
You'd hit the wrong notes.
You might even play a really terrible song.
Right. But you wouldn't give up.
No, you'd keep practicing.
You keep practicing and you learn from your mistakes.
And eventually you get better.
Right. And language is no different.
It's exactly the same.
So embrace the mistakes.
Don't be afraid of them.
See them as part of the journey.
They're your friends.
Now let's talk about some practical tips for overcoming this fear of speaking. And it appears that one of the best things you can do is simply practice more.
Practice, practice, practice.
The more you practice,
Mm-hmm.
the more comfortable you'll become.
Absolutely. The more confident you'll feel.
It's like anything else in life.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the better you get at it.
The more natural it becomes.
Right. So what are some ways that our listeners can practice speaking?
Okay, well, one really easy way is to just talk to yourself in English.
Talk to yourself.
Yes. I know it sounds a little strange,
Okay.
but it can be really helpful.
Okay.
You can do it in the privacy of your own home.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to judge you.
Right.
You can describe what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk about your plans.
Okay.
You can even have imaginary conversations.
So just like thinking out loud in English.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
And that's a really good way to just get comfortable with the sounds.
Yeah. And with forming sentences
Right.
and using the vocabulary, you know?
Without the pressure of actually talking to someone?
Exactly. It's a safe space to practice.
Okay, I like that.
Wow.
Now, another way to practice is to find a language partner.
Yes, a language partner is a great idea.
Someone who's also learning English,
Mm-hmm.
and you can practice together.
You can have conversations.
You can correct each other's mistakes.
You can learn from each other.
Right. And you can support each other
Absolutely. And it can be really motivating.
to have someone to practice with.
Yeah, you're both in it together.
Right. And you can hold each other accountable.
Exactly.
And it appears that another great way to practice is to find native speakers online.
Oh, yeah. There are so many resources online now.
There are websites,
Apps,
social
media groups,
where you can connect with native speakers.
and have conversations.
Right. And this is a great way to get exposed to different accents,
Mm-hmm.
different ways of speaking,
Different vocabulary.
and to really get a feel for how English is actually used in the real world.
Absolutely. And it can be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So it's a great way to improve your fluency,
Mm.
your listening skills.
And your confidence.
Right. Now let's talk about the importance of confidence,
Okay.
because it appears that confidence plays a huge role in how well you speak English.
It really does.
Even if your English isn't perfect,
Mm-hmm.
if you speak with confidence,
Yeah.
people are more likely to understand you.
Absolutely. And they're more likely to be patient with you.
Right, because they can see that you're trying.
Exactly. You're putting yourself out there.
Right. And you believe in yourself.
And that confidence is contagious.
It is.
It makes people want to listen to you.
And it makes you more enjoyable to listen to.
Absolutely.
So how can our listeners develop more confidence?
Well, I think the first step is to just be aware of your body language.
Okay.
You know, stand up straight, make eye contact,
Mm-hmm.
speak clearly,
Project your voice.
project your voice, don't mumble.
Don't be afraid to take up space.
Exactly.
Right. And another important thing is to focus on the positive.
Yes. Celebrate your successes,
Right.
no matter how small they seem.
Every time you have a successful conversation,
Mm-hmm.
give yourself credit for that.
Acknowledge your progress.
Right? Because it's easy to focus on the negative,
It is.
the mistakes,
Mhm.
the things you don't know.
But it's important to also focus on what you're doing well.
Right. On the progress you're making.
Absolutely. And remember, everyone learns at their own pace.
Right.
There's no rush.
So be patient with yourself
Be kind to yourself.
and celebrate those small victories.
They all add up.
Now let's talk about pronunciation,
Okay.
because it appears that this is another area that can make people feel self-conscious.
Mm-hmm.
They're worried about not sounding like a native speaker.
Right. And they're worried about people not understanding them.
Right. And those are valid concerns.
They are.
But the good news is that pronunciation can be improved
Absolutely.
with practice.
With practice and with the right technique.
Right. So what are some tips for improving pronunciation?
Well, one of the best things you can do is to listen to native speakers as much as possible.
Podcasts,
Podcasts,
music,
movies.
movies, TV shows.
Right. And really pay attention to how they're pronouncing the words.
Yeah. Listen to the sounds they're making,
The rhythm.
the intonation,
Right.
and try to imitate them.
Exactly. And it can be helpful to record yourself speaking and then listen back to it.
To hear how you sound
Yeah. And to compare your pronunciation.
to a native speaker.
And then you can identify areas where you need to improve.
Right.
Yeah.
And another fun way to practice pronunciation is to use tongue twisters.
Oh, yeah. Tongue twisters are great.
They're challenging,
They are.
but they're also fun.
And they really make you focus on the sounds.
Right. And they can help you to develop muscle memory
Mm-hmm.
for those difficult sounds.
Exactly.
So don't be afraid to have a little fun
Yeah.
with your pronunciation practice.
It shouldn't feel like a chore.
Right?
Mhm.
It should be enjoyable.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about speaking in everyday situations, because it appears that this is where a lot of learners really struggle.
Mm-hmm.
They can handle the classroom setting.
Yeah.
They can talk to their language partner,
But then they go out into the real world.
and they freeze.
And it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say.
Right. So let's give them some practical tips
Okay.
for handling those everyday situations.
Right.
So let's imagine you're in a restaurant
Okay.
and you want to order some food.
Mm-hmm.
What are some simple phrases you could use?
Well, you could say something like, can I have the menu, please?
Oh,
Or I'd like to order, please.
okay.
Or what do you recommend?
Those are good.
Simple and polite.
Right. And if you're not sure what something is on the menu,
Mm.
don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah. You can say, what is this?
Or, can you explain this dish, please?
Exactly.
And when you're ready to order,
Mm-hmm.
you can say something like, I'll have the chicken, please.
Or I'd like the pasta.
Simple and straightforward.
And don't forget to say thank you and please.
Right. Those are important.
Very important.
So don't overthink it.
Keep it simple
Use short sentences.
and be polite.
Now let's talk about how to find speaking partners,
Okay.
because it appears that a lot of learners feel like they have to do this alone.
Yeah, they feel isolated.
But there are actually lots of resources available
Mm-hmm.
to help you find people to practice with.
You just need to know where to look.
Right. So what are some of those resources?
Well, one great option is to join online language learning groups.
Okay.
There are tons of them on social media.
Facebook groups.
Facebook groups,
Go
Reddit,
to a Discord server.
where people from all over the world
Mm-hmm.
are connecting.
And practicing their English.
Right. And another option is to look for language exchange partners.
Yeah, this is where you find someone who's learning your native language,
Mm-hmm.
and you can help each other.
You can speak English with them,
Mm-hmm.
and they can speak your native language with you.
Exactly. So you both get to practice. And there are websites and apps
Mm-hmm.
specifically designed for finding language exchange partners.
Like tandem.
Hello Talk.
Hello Talk.
So there are lots of options out there.
You just have to find what works best for you.
So let's wrap up with some final tips for speaking English without fear.
Okay.
First of all, make it a habit to speak English every day.
Even if it's just for a few minutes.
Right. Find opportunities to use your English.
Talk to yourself.
Watch movies.
Listen to music.
Read books.
And talk to people.
Right. And don't wait for the perfect moment to start speaking.
Just start now.
Start small.
And keep going.
Remember that the more you speak, the better you'll get.
And the more confident you'll feel.
So keep listening, keep repeating, and keep overcoming that fear.
You can do it.
So that's it for today's podcast.
We hope you found it helpful.
I hope you feel more confident about speaking English.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Embrace the journey.
Keep practicing.
And remember, you are amazing.
Yes, you are.
See you next time on
Bye.
English Podcast Flow.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. It really helps our channel grow and reach more English learners like you. By subscribing, you'll never miss a new episode, and by liking the video, you're letting us know you want more helpful content. Thank you for your support. It means so much to us.